Hello, my name is Paul Godinez. I'm with Logix Magazine. You want to be a PLC programmer? Well, I want to share some shortcuts I would use if I was just starting my training as a PLC programmer. In this video, you'll discover 11 shortcuts that you can use that'll have you creating a program so good a senior engineer with 10 years experience won't know a beginner wrote it. Let's start by keeping this in mind. Professional PLC programs are built one rung at a time, and no matter how big they are, someone created them by considering every single instruction on every single rung. Therefore, you need to do the same. Unfortunately, when a beginner looks at a professionally completed program, they inevitably get stunned in the silence. They get lost and confused trying to follow the logic. And that's okay. In fact, it's to be expected. But believe it or not, there are shortcuts beginners can use that will quickly make you look like a pro in no time. So let me share these 11 shortcuts. Space. Yep. You need to set up a time and space to practice your programming. This is an absolute requirement for beginners because you need to develop the skill to work for long periods of time on your programming. You need to know what it's like to work hard on a project without interruption and complete it. The shortcut is to practice, practice, practice to complete the project. You know, kind of a side note here, when you're given a project, it's going to take lots of focus and concentration. It's going to take a lot of hard mental work, especially for beginners. You are going to struggle. And the more practice you put in focusing and struggling and working hard to find the solution to get through the section of the program that you're struggling with, the better prepared you will be. Make no mistake about it. This is an absolute must. Okay, second shortcut, template. Build a template. You need to build a template that you can use to build all following programs. The shortcut to becoming a great programmer is to be efficient, and that's done by using a basic program with standard inputs, outputs, faults, HMI messaging, bypass options, and more as a template. So what I would recommend is that you build a template that has your inputs, outputs. It doesn't matter what the output, you can name it output 1, output 2, input 1, input 2, 10 of each, for example. Build those basic rungs. Get some HMI messaging there. Doesn't matter what the messaging is. Build in your bypass and your faults. Build a whole routine covered with a large variety of faults. And then use that as that template. And as you learn more, and modify and tweak this particular template. And a great way to get this, so that with this template, you literally can have 70% of that program, any program, written almost the top of your head, right off the top of your head, and save that other 25 or 30% for the more complex automation cycle. But start to build that basic template. It's an incredibly helpful shortcut. Okay, now the third shortcut I like to call the library shortcut. And no matter how good your basic template is, you're going to need to start collecting programs and rungs into a library. You're going to want to find examples of PID programming. Now, there are several ways to program a PID, and encoders and high-speed counters, etc. The list will never end, and this library will help save your day. So as you're going through and you get pieces of code that is helpful, that you understand, that you have practiced, even some pieces of code that maybe you haven't mastered yet, start building these libraries of rungs and routines, okay, and programs so that you can quickly pull them out. Now, another thing I used to do is I'd print off the PDFs, and I would study those PDFs. I'd put them in a binder that would say, PID or high-speed counters, whatever it is that you're you're going to study. And I would use those as my study notes and my reference notes when building programs, right? So I'm literally building that library of code, okay? So another secret is knowing what the good websites are, okay? So you're going to need to know where to get the best online advice and support. You're going to want to bookmark them, contact the owner, and make friends with them. And if the website is a forum, create a membership and get involved. Let everyone know you are a beginner and learn to listen and ask smart questions. There are some really great websites out there with a lot of awesome, high-level members of forums in particular that will help you answer questions. They are your quickest, your easiest, and generally free resource, first resource beyond your help files and your immediate support. They're going to be invaluable in your career, okay? You're going to run into issues that might just be a simple thing to solve, that you can quickly ask a question or at least get some help and being pointed in the right direction. So knowing what these websites are, what they are, getting involved, you should know what the top 10 PLC websites are. You should know what the top programming resources are. You need to have this information and you need to collect it. And this becomes part of your little black book, if you will. And the same could be said with getting to know people. They become part of that black book, part of your value. All right. So you're going to also need the fifth secret, and that's hardware. Get a real controller. Okay. So, grab one of the controllers and learn to wire it up yourself. There's nothing like having one in your hand, creating a program, and then wiring it up and watching it work exactly like it was programmed to. When you program it and you wire it and it doesn't work, you're going to troubleshoot it and you're going to figure it out. It's one of the most valuable experiences that you're going to have. And the more variety of PLCs that you can get your hands on, practice and wiring and coding, the better off and more prepared you will be when that time comes. Go online, go to eBay, go anywhere. My very first one, I had some burnout outputs, I believe it was. Inputs, outputs, I don't remember what it was. It had 7 or 8 inputs and outputs that were still good. They upgraded. They were going to throw it away. I asked for it. I took it home. And that was my very first PLC that I actually had at my home. So it was an awesome experience. When I look back on it, I relished that time. All right. So when you're building and wiring this, again, there's nothing like having one in your hand, creating a program, wiring it, watching it work. Consider the circuit protectors, the controls, i.e. push buttons, stop buttons, etc. Literally build a small circuit from scratch that you built yourself in the real world. Very inexpensive hardware. You can go to Automation Direct and get some great controls devices to help you build your simple circuit. All right, your sixth shortcut is Autocad. Okay, incredibly invaluable. And whether you use Autocad or use SolidWorks, doesn't really matter. But you need to draw several sets of prints from scratch. An entire set of prints, actually, from page 1 to the last page. It covers the entire machine. Okay, you don't need to have the machine in front of you. Find a picture of a machine that's simple enough and just start drawing the electrical prints for it. You can go online to one of your forums and ask them to review them. Tell them what you're doing and ask for their opinion. Get that feedback. But I'll tell you, one of the great engineering firm I worked as a controls engineer for, the very first task I was put on was to draw a very, wasn't even that big of AutoCAD file, but to start drawing prints, okay? The very first task that I was asked to do. So you can expect to be asked to to draft prints. Real simple. On any given time, the more practice you get, the better off you'll be. Just plain and simple. Quick shortcut, draw lots of prints. Okay, resumes, that's our next shortcut, right? So what I recommend is go online and review other people's resumes. Just type in PLC programmer resumes or controls engineers resumes or even electrical engineer resumes, and then study them. Discover what their experience is. If you read a technology or word you don't, read about it and you run into a technology or a word you don't know, look it up, research it. Watch the videos, download the software if you can, and play with it. Whatever you do, stay curious. Discover, learn, make notes. I have many of my notebooks. I went to Walmart back in the day and I started a library filled with notes for programming. Okay, a lot of stuff. Just random thoughts, ideas, things that I'm working on. I highly recommend doing that as a way to keep track, give you some feedback on what you're doing. Okay, but most importantly, look and study resumes and try to understand and learn from that. It's really going to be valuable to you when you start building your own resume, start marketing yourself in the workplace. Okay. The 8th shortcut, help files. I gotta tell you, the help files in the software you're using is invaluable. Read about each and every single instruction. All right. Learn about the communication protocols, the indicator lights, and typical faults, and troubleshoot them on the processor. So all your processors have, well, not all, but many of them have indicator lights. You should know on the front of your PLC what the indicator lights are for. Not all of them are clearly and easily marked, as is on this 1400 Micrologix 1400. But you should be familiar with that. You should understand what the typical faults are. So I'm asking you and suggesting that you spend time learning about that. All right, so the important thing to remember is many of the controllers are built different, but in the same token, in many ways, they're all the same as well. My point is to get familiar with the help files, as they are your first line of support when you're working alone at night on a machine and you're stuck. I cannot overemphasize, do not overlook this advice. You are going to use the help file. Okay, you are going to use the help file. Get familiar with it. All right, with the help file. Know exactly where they're at. Get familiar with it. All right, projects. The next shortcut. Yes, you absolutely need to create dozens of projects. You must draw CAD files, write PLC programs, create programmable safety relay programs, hardware controllers, and much more. Then you have to videotape yourself doing them. Just take your phone out and make a video, talk about it. You can post it on Facebook put it on a thumb drive. Okay, you can take your CAD files, print them out, combine them in a folder, and literally create a very powerful projects portfolio. Okay, very important shortcut to success. Okay, to becoming a world-class programmer. Okay, want ads, yes. Next, I would spend time searching the want ads online. I would try to determine where my skill level is compared to what I find. I would want to figure out what a senior engineer's skill level looks like on paper and what an entry-level engineer's skill level is. Then I'd read the entry-level want ads and ask myself if I met the job's requirements. If I thought I was close, I would print out the ad and save it until the time was right for me to land a job. The big thing about that is one of the hardest things about programming, PLC programming, and getting the job market is having a barometer. It's knowing where you're at compared to everyone else. Now, it's sometimes disconcerting when you read a resume of a senior engineer and it's stacked with all kinds of stuff. I mean, they got Visual Basic, Python, they got SQL, they got very complex Profinet experience, and they got it's packed. And you look at yours, and you look inside, you feel inside that internal truth, and you're like, oh my man, I can't compare to this. This is why this is important. This exercise this shortcut is really important. You've got to study all the different one ads and look for entry level opportunities, several of them, and study them and what they look for. It may even put some salary offers in the ad. Get familiar with it so you can get comfortable with the idea about where you're at and what the market has to offer for somebody who's new in programming. All right. So I would say the 11th shortcut, in my opinion, if I was going to start PLC programming over again, if I was just starting, I know that I'd have to work on my confidence. No question about it. Matter of fact, I would work real damn hard to learn at least one new thing about programming every single day. Every single day. Every day. Then I would tell myself several times a day that I can be a PLC programmer. And you can be a PLC programmer. No question about it. I can learn anything. And when the time is right, I will get the job done right. Okay. I would continue to remind myself that I will not quit. That's really critical. Okay. I would tell myself that I'm better than that. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to beat the odds, and I will become a programmer, and nothing will get in my way. Nothing. And I bring this up because there are literally tens of thousands of people who have the intent to become PLC programmers, and very, very, very few actually ever do it. Okay, so I want you to build. I would build on my confidence that I can do this. I can learn something, I can figure it out, and I can do this. Because learning to do this job is difficult. As I said before, thousands and thousands, and I mean thousands, will quit before they ever learn to properly program a PLC, let alone get a controls or programming automation engineering job. They will let life get in the way. They will not find the time. They will have every excuse why they can't figure something out, or why they will never actually get a great paying job, and they will quit. You can do better than that. I guarantee you can do better than that. I've given you all of my best advice here. And with this advice, you can learn to program and get a great job that lets you travel the world, work on cutting edge technology, lead $1 million projects, and earn 6 figures. So until next time, let me know if you have any questions about the programming, or how I can help you build that career, your confidence. If you have any suggestions on some additional shortcuts that would help anybody who's just starting out as a PLC programmer. So until next time, this is Paul with Logix Magazine.